PlayFab Office Hours. I am Zach Bragg, a member of the SDK team, and today with me I've got Marco Williams, Brendan Venice, and Tom
Robbins.
Robbins.
Wow,
Uh,
look at that. And then what does everyone do?
well, we've got,
Why don't you let Marco tell?
yeah.
Marco, what do you do?
So I am heading up the developer tools team. So Zach and I, we have another team member, Paul, that runs our SDK team. Keeps all of our SDKs up to date with all the APIs and developing new tools for web users.
And I'm Brendan. I'm the head of the developers. Can't hear me? All right. Hey guys, I'm Brendan. I'm basically the chief tech rep for the company. I'm the head of the developer success team, which means I manage the community through our support site, community.playfab.com. And commonly, I'm the one chasing down, getting you the tech answers that you need for any problems that you run into, doing meetings with folks to make sure that they get all the information they need, and generally being a pain to the people internally to make sure that they know what it is that you guys need that I'm hearing.
And I'm Tom Robbins. I do what these fine gentlemen tell me what to do on the marketing side.
All right, and with that, we will introduce our topic. Today's topic is push notifications, broadly in general, but also specific to setting it up within the PlayFab system service, and also some advanced use cases and cool things that you can do with PlayFab's Android plugin. So, with that, we can introduce basically what is push notification and what can be done with it in general. We have so in general, push notifications are text message like notifications that can go to mobile devices. Generally, this is supported by all major platforms: Google Android, Apple iOS, iPhone. All of these devices typically can handle push notifications.
So, Brendan, how often do you see our customers using push as
Push,
part of?
as part of their titles.
Yeah.
Yeah, push is really common for mobile games, particularly. Well, you can't hear me. All right. Let me move over here, folks. Just get a little closer.
Wow,
Push
that's a sight.
is that?
Yeah.
All right. So push is really common. You still cannot hear me.
Oh, that's because I was.
You were muted. Okay.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. The push notifications are really common in mobile titles. Granted, a player has to accept the push notification, and the way that mobile devices work. If they turn them off, you actually don't get notified of that. But it's actually usually pretty common for players when they're invested in a game and enjoying it. They accept for push, and they want to get those pushes because they want to know when it's time to collect their apples from their orchard, or they've got the gold that they want to spend, things like that.
And then, so Marco, before you came here, you had your own game company. How did you see push a lot? Did you use push at all for your games?
Pretty much every single game that we built at Hashbean Games, we used push notifications in it. I pretty much have seen it throughout the gaming industry. It's pretty commonly used.
Okay.
Yeah, and some technical background for what makes push happen. So we see the notifications come up on the player's device. It has usually a cute little icon, a little message, and you can click those notifications, and generally they take you into the application that sent the notification itself. So to make this happen, there's actually a very delicate linkage system from server to the mobile device that makes this happen. And this is basically the messaging channel. So that is owned primarily by the operators of the device. So in Apple's case, Apple owns the channel to the iPhone and the iPad. Google owns the channel to the Android devices, and other companies in the space own their own channels. So that channel.
A question I often get asked is, and Marco and I got asked this a lot. If I use this, how much do I pay for SMS messages?
And for that, so you don't pay anything for SMS. If you're going through a push provider, You may have a per push fee that you end up paying, but that's going to vary depending on who your provider is. If you're pushing through PlayFab, there is no extra cost for pushing messages to your developers, regardless of how many you push messages to or what device endpoint you're pushing towards. So, does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I often get asked that a lot.
So you're telling me that push notifications at PlayFab are absolutely free?
Push notifications are indeed absolutely free.
Free.
That's
Free.
awesome. That's amazing.
Free. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm not hearing anything. And so you've got this, you've got the device, you've got the channel owned by the different manufacturers, and then it's up to the game developer, each game developer for each title, to link this channel to their mobile device and have some logic in between to be able to say, push to this user with this message, and do this after that push notification is received. So PlayFab really pulls all of that together in a really easy to use interface, and you can send as many users your push notifications for free using PlayFab. And now we're going to get into how you do that, how you set up that channel, how do you fetch the messages on the local device, and then what can you do with them when you do get push notifications. And then we've also got some topics here on the side that we may discuss, and these just are general points and bullets around how to use push notifications in general, best practices, and what types of notifications to send, who to send them to, how frequently to send them, because I'm sure most of the listeners of this type of podcast will have experienced push notifications both in a positive and a negative light. Some people use push notifications properly and, very rarely with timely, valuable information. And then others kind of go the spammy route, and who knows what's going to be coming through the push notification. Lots of push notifications frequently that really don't have any value or any intrinsic value. And oftentimes that drives users away, and they will opt out of those push notifications, which kind of puts you in a bad position because your direct channel to your players is now a little bit weaker and a little bit less effective, because that is you're driving users away and opting out of your whole system. So with that, we can get into the Google routing pieces. So if you are going to push to Android users, you need to have a Google Play developer account. I'm just going to have some screens here for talking points for reference as it's up here. So I'm showing our API showcase project, and this is our push notification setup. And from here, you see that we have a server key, and we also have this sidebar menu with some additional options. So I'm just going to talk through the necessary things and then show how we take this information at PlayFab and tie it directly to a particular title. So first, you'll want to make sure that your title has API keys enabled for gameplay services, as well as Google Cloud Messaging. These are very important and often missed in most startup guides. So make sure that you have those APIs turned on. And then you'll also want to have a project set up in the Google Developers Console. Ours is called API Showcase there. And then you'll need to generate a server API key. And this API key is used for external servers to communicate and use this platform channel. So those are important. This is where you find them. And then also important is from the Google Play Developer Console, we have a direct linkage between this console and our developers console. So that is done through this part here. Down in the bottom of the Google Play Store, you get a Services and APIs menu option. Once you're in this menu option, you can link additional projects and things here, which basically this is the key that you're going to want to type in from the console page, and then that link is established. This basically completes the pipeline for the Google setup for the Google channel, and we're going to use this API key here to run some commands that enable the Google channel to be properly set up for our title. So with that, we're going to use the Postman to emulate our API calls. And with that, we can access the PlayFab admin API. And under that, we have an admin API called setup push notification. All right, and for Android, we've got a few parameters here. This is the first parameter is an arbitrary string. That's just a requirement that Amazon puts on us. So behind the scenes, we use Amazon to do the connecting to all the various channels. This is an important point because if you're setting up the system on your own, there are these channels, Apple, Google, uh, uh, and anyways, the various delivery channels to your various devices all have to be set up and linked independently, and this is all kind of managed for in the back end for PlayFab using Amazon SNS, and I can provide some links for that for additional details towards the end. But using Amazon SNS, we have these parameters that we have to provide, basically a name, a platform, credentials, and then a Boolean here that is used to overwrite existing ARNs. And I'm going to set this to false for now, just so I don't override any title information that I've already set. But basically, this is the structure of this call. You execute the call, and since we've got our overwrite set to false, we get a 400. But this is where we get our success call.
So Zach, do you have to do this API call for each platform? So do you have to do it for iOS separately than the GCM?
Yeah, that's a great question, Marco. So you will need to do this for each platform exactly once. So for this Google platform, this will need to be set up one time for your title. And then the only caveat to that is if for some reason you have changed your API key in the Google Developers Console, you'll need to make that relink. And if you do have to do that relink, all of your users that have previously been registered that link will be broken, and then they'll need to re-enable that push notification. So that's just something to consider. If your game is live, these are very important to not touch these values. It is a very delicate system, as I've mentioned. So the three components.
What do you mean by delicate? Like, does it get offended if you look at it or something?
It almost seems that way. So you look at it wrong, or you type in a couple wrong keys, or type it in too slow, and it gets irritated and stops working. Um, it's temperamental.
Temperamental. That's it. Okay.
That may be a better term. But yeah, so that is the bit for Google. For Apple, it's a little bit more involved in that Apple has two parallel systems. They have a sandbox delivery system, and then they have a production delivery system. For our backend, we currently enable one of those at a time. So your structure to set up the iOS call looks a little bit different, and it's kind of got these scary keys in there. They're really long and encoded in various details about your title and your certification. But basically, this Apple call should be set up either once for your while you're developing, and then that is is what is called Apple Push Notification System Sandbox, APNS Sandbox. And then when you're really making that final stretch, pushing to live, you'd want to switch over to your your production certificate, and that becomes just APNS. So that's Apple Push Notification System. And similarly, we've got the name title here, the platform APNS, the credential, and the key. And then I'll walk through in a minute how to get these keys, because it's a little bit of an involved process, but it's not complex by any stretch. So it's pretty simple. Just a little bit of a learning curve in getting this. And like I said before, you only need to get this one or two times, depending on which platform you're looking to do, and then you're set for the lifetime of your title. Any other questions before we get into the certification for Apple?
I don't have any. No. So, I guess the easy question is, and I guess you'll cover it later, right? What are there any reasons why you would go with Google over Apple? As far as writing your title, or people see better response on one versus the other?
Well, that's an interesting field of study. I don't know if I have the end answer for that, but I will say that Apple push notifications, because they are opt-in, they tend to have a higher rate of response and a higher rate of action on those push notifications. Because Android devices more or less are enabled by default, you'd still have to register and get the token of the client's mobile device. Oftentimes these apps kind of are heavy users of push notifications, and generally the opt-in rate or the success metrics around Android push notifications tend to skew a little bit lower. So that's the level of knowledge that I have. I can't really go deeper on that, but it's really interesting field of study, particularly for marketing and trying to get the effectiveness of what works for your game. And push notification definitely seems to be a very effective means compared to standard text, email, or other traditional outreach methods that are common to the game developers and tech industry.
Brendan, do you guys have any comments around it?
Sure. So, and this is largely coming from the time that I spent in the Xbox team at Microsoft. But what we tended to see was that your highest success in terms of getting information to users is obviously a message that's actually in the game, message of the day, something like that. For getting people to come back to your game, push notifications on mobile is probably your best bet. Certainly, it's what we saw. Emails, generally speaking, very, very low rate of success. I mean, even the open rate on emails is incredibly low. So push is definitely a far better solution.
Yeah, and some of the articles that we've done some blog posts and studies on, they've put the open rate of push notifications anywhere up into the 90 percentile. So approximately 90% of users are actually opening and reading the contents of these push notifications, whether they're deep linking into the game and coming back and re-engaging with your game and your activities. That's an area that would be interesting to study.
So having a 12-year-old son, he looks at these things and it's like compulsive for him. So he sees them and he immediately has to do it on his Clash of Clans and all the rest. So having seen it from kids' perspective, it's a pretty big deal.
Indeed. And it's also a big deal to be able to be comfortable with the system, know how to use it, and use it effectively to get to your audience, to get that re-engagement, to get the participation in your live events or whatever it is that you're really using push notification to target. So I've got, like I showed our Google Play developer console, here's the Apple developer console for our titles. I'm showing our development certificates. So I guess it's obvious that you do need an Apple account to be able to push to Apple devices and build through the App Store and etc. And going through the process for that, you end up with certificates on the developer portal. And if you haven't created a certificate already, you'll need to create one that has either development options here at the top or production options down at the bottom. And like I mentioned before, this directly relates to the APNS sandbox or APNS parameters that you see here on our API calls. So while you're in development, you'll want the push notification SSL certificate here at the top. I've already got one, so I'm going to back out of this wizard and just show the development certificates. Here it is for our application. Then you're going to want to download these if you haven't already and install them. And that gives you a CER file, which is a certificate file from Apple. Those get installed into the Keychain Access application just native to the Apple environment or OS X. Here is a listing of all my certificates. From here, I've got several apps installed and both production and development certificates. So I just need to make sure and pick the right development certificate. This shows you my little bit of details for this certificate, and then you'll want to export this certificate into a P12 format. So once that is done, you'll end up with a encoded certificate that is pretty difficult to work with. However, they're using the OpenSSL command that I will show here momentarily. It will convert this to a human readable text format in the .pem structure. Just a moment while I pull up the notes with that command. All right, and Tom, where should I post this? Should this go to Hangout? Should this go to live stream?
We'll post it to live stream.
All right.
Yeah. By the
Look.
way, we have a special guest in our room right now, which is Tim from Ouya. Uh, is it just Ouya now, or is it also like Razor? Do I say Tim from Razor or Tim from Ouya?
It's from Razor.
Oh, so it's Tim from Razor. This is awesome.
Excellent. Can you hear him? You can hear him.
Yeah.
Hey Tim, how's it going?
Oh, doing good. I'm a PlayFab fan.
Excellent. Well, I'm having difficulties pasting this code in, but let me pull this over on the monitor so you can see. Basically, it's very common code. You can find it in Amazon documentation, Apple documentation. It's basically OpenSSL, and then you're giving it some parameters. You're showing it where the P12 file is, and you're showing it where to put the PEM file. So after you've ran that on your certificate, you will get a text file which has lots of stuff that looks like this, and it'll be broken up on several lines. I believe I can give an example of that too. Forgot to pull that up.
So,
Hey Tim. So when you were doing your SDK stuff, did Ouya have push notifications like built into it?
No, we kind of the SDK right now just has support for in-app purchases and controllers for a lot of controllers. So we don't really have the social features yet for leaderboards, achievements, matchmaking, that kind of stuff. So, but Ouya, Mojo, Xiaomi, and ForgeTV all support third-party libraries. So there's no reason why PlayFab wouldn't work on the ForgeTV or achievements. We don't have any rules through, in our review process to block that. So I've been looking forward to seeing some examples running on the consoles.
Oh,
Military Android.
yeah, that's a great idea. You know, that's probably something we could do here. Is
I can't find a
some
file that I was
examples
going to
from
show.
Forge, and then we have some PlayFab examples that actually like work on the Forge. That'd be really cool. Yeah.
So social features are something that's requested a lot for games. So yeah, a lot of people are looking forward to that.
So are you just generating a new key? Is that what you're doing with that?
Yeah. Well, I'm pulling up a reference here. It took me a while to find the file, but basically this is what you're going to see. Is that coming over? I lost my stream. All right, yeah. So you see begin certificate and then a large block of text, and then you see down below that begin RSA private key and then a large block of text. So we're going to be pasting these values into the PlayFab API call. Like so. And if you'll notice, these keys are on multiple, or this key is spread across multiple lines, and it needs to be condensed into one line for this call. To do that, it's simple, although tedious. So you're going to want a \n for each line, and then you're going to want to collapse one by one all the way down. So each line gets its own \n.
Oh, you guys need a tool for this.
Yes, we do. And that is something we will be looking at being able to directly upload PEM files in the future. That's this format, and then you get to basically do that all on the web console, and then this part that I'm going to show after is basically automated. But we're still living in this world, so we're given a nice little tutorial on how to manage these certificates. And once you get this done, it's really no problem at all. So there's the \ns, and then just always collapsing it down.
And you only have to do this once, right?
Yeah, once for development and then once for production. So technically twice for the lifetime of your title, but that's all you should have to do. Yeah, and you get the idea here. We collapse the key down, copy it, paste it into here, and the RSA private key matches to the credential, and then the key matches to the certificate. Once those values are in, you can set up your link, and then that goes off, and if we were not overwriting the old ARN, that would be a 200 success. And then your title is good to go. You can now push across both channels, the iOS and Android channels. And now that's basically all you need to do to set up the server. Now we're going to talk about the client side handling of these push notifications, and then maybe get into some best practices, what to do around when to send it, etc. So before we get into the client, any questions?
I don't see any questions in our chat right now.
All right. So, all right, so I'll be pulling up Unity and diving into a sneak peek of our sample project. And this is a sample and testing project, very useful for making sure that your push notifications are working and you're getting the intended result that you're looking for. So it's basically one scene where it loads into a small window console with just a few options where we show some basic instructions, and then you're given the ability to register a mobile device for push notifications and then send test notifications, as well as handle the received notification in a couple different ways. And we'll show that off.
Is this sample going to be available to download? Are we providing this example somewhere for them to be able to, grab this example and be able to test out their own push notifications with it?
Yeah, we should be pushing this live hopefully later today. I'd like to run it by everyone here internally real quick, but this is I'm really trying to get this out as soon as possible, if not by the end of the day. So definitely keep an eye on our blog and our Twitter for announcements on when this comes out. But yeah, this is completely designed to be consumable by any level of expertise user. So it's very instructional, lots of comments, and very simple interface, very simple concept. So with that, I will kind of walk through the screen. So this is because machines like Apple or like Macintoshes don't have the push notification system. There's not much you can run from the editor inside of Unity. So you can turn it on and nothing really works other than it builds and plays. So to get effectiveness here, you really have to build this out to a mobile device, and due to time constraints and technology constraints, we weren't able to show a live running mobile device in this stream, but I did get a lot of pictures for what to expect, and I'll talk through the basic experience. So the first thing that happens is the script automatically logs the mobile device into the PlayFab service, and this generates an account or uses an account that's already attached to the device ID. And once that player has been successfully authenticated, these buttons down at the bottom will light up. So first button to light up is the register button. This will grab a push token from the device, and this is an automated process that goes through the native API depending on which device you're in, and we'll get into the code for that in just a moment. Once you're registered, we are automatically sending an immediate push notification to test the response. And I will say that this heavily depends on the Android plugin that we're using. So inside of Unity, we've got, and I'll open the project and show all those pieces off too. But for now, this functionality that I'm showing throughout this testing app is really only available in Android. The default behavior of the iOS push, if your application is running, the application will eat that push notification and not push that to the notification bar. So we're going to show and discuss all of the different combinations of how that can happen and why you would want things to go certain ways. But for the purposes of this one, we're automatically sending an immediate push notification after registration that says exactly what I'm displaying here. You can close that dialog, and then you can see that additional push notifications can be sent from this orange box on the right, send test push notification. And then we see the status. We're now push enabled, and we now can route to the notification bar. So this is what I was just mentioning. Occasionally, or in the standard push notification, you will see your messages come down from the top of the window like this. You'll see the icon of your application, and then some text for the title of that application, and then the actual text from the message itself. This is a push notification that has been routed to the notification bar. This is a push notification that has been consumed internally with the game, and this notification did not go to the notification bar. So anyone want to take a guess on why you'd want to do one over the other?
I don't know. Why? What do I win if I guess right? I guess is the question.
Well, I figure if your game has focus and they have custom engines or whatever, it's gonna you won't be able to see a system notification. This is unique display. The way activities work and how they've monkeyed with it, you're gonna want to be able to display in game. It's just two different modes. There's Java apps and native apps. They've done native apps. You want to do it in game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've always got the app kind of running in the background or paused and put to the side when it's not the main activity. So in that case, almost always you're going to want to push that message to the notification bar so they can see that come in, know there's some kind of status update in the game, and then go back into the game to see what that status message was about. So in some cases, you're going to want to use both. So you get the notification in the notification bar kicks off the game, and then the game has some processing that says, hey, wait, there's a new push notification here. Maybe there's something I need to do with it. And commonly we see that push notification link directly into an offer or a store or some other promotional reward that can be redeemed from this process. And this is only possible when you can push additional information into the push notification and then read and consume that within the client. And that's exactly what we're going to walk through in just a moment. So we see the two different modalities, the surfaced in the game, surfaced at the notification bar, and here we're showing push notification with a custom icon and sound. Obviously, the sound is not demonstratable in this way, but trust us, it's in there, and you can override your default behavior, default icon, very simply by sending a few parameters and then processing them properly on the client. And we do this automatically for the Android PlayFab users, and eventually we're going to have a plugin out for the iOS as well. And this is an example of that custom data. So this message comes in from the game, and it can be displayed either internally or at the notification level, telling you, hey, you've got some gold. And that's all that's actually displayed in the surfaced notification area message. But also included in the message is some custom data that gets stripped out. And inside this client, we're actually displaying it for demonstration purposes. That this is telling you which currency to use as well as how much gold to award. And this could be some key or some link URI type information that tells your game which screen to load and what information to put in front of the user. Very powerful stuff. And any questions on the overall flow, or otherwise we'll jump into the code and kind of walk through the process that we're showing here in the screenshots.
Sure. How do your push notifications display? Is that a fragment or an activity or an overlay? What is it?
Yeah, so I'll let Marco talk about the wirings of how the activities wired up to work in conjunction with the Unity build. But basically, this is an overlay that's just over top of it that's communicating back and forth with the native code, and it's able to get the information coming in from the platform.
Yeah. So what Zach has built is actually inside of Unity. So Unity intercepts that message and it gets sent, through the JNI integration, So the message is received in a service. We're not using like overriding your default activity or anything like that. So everything is done at the service layer, and we'll receive that push notification, and then we send. Basically, we detect if Unity's running. If Unity's running, we use a send message. We send that into Unity. And then if your Unity instance isn't running, then it sends it to the notification bar.
And when your application resumes, Marco's also caching the last push notification so that you can reach back and see if there was a previous notification in the time that it was paused.
Yeah, so that way you always have access to the last push notification. So I really, you know, set it up that way so that when you press on the notification in the notification bar, and then it starts up your new intent and puts you back into your game, that you had a way of retrieving that custom data after you've started up the app again. So did that answer your question, Tim?
Okay, so since you're using send message, that means it's in the C sharp code side.
Yeah.
You have like in code, is there a callback that's get called, and then you can choose how to display that notification any way you want once you're in Unity code side.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly the way we have it set up. So we have an event that you subscribe to, and when that message is received from Java, then it triggers that event, and then you can display the message however you want.
Cool. And you didn't touch the activity, so that'll be happy to play with other plugins and stuff.
Yep.
A nice feature.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're quite proud of the Android plugin. It's really come a long way since Marco's joined us. So uh, props to him on that. Thanks. And I know a lot of developers are going to get a lot of use out of that. In addition to saving the last plugin, if you're on the PlayFab service, an interesting idea would also be to save these push notifications in the player data for a long history of what push notifications they've received, and those could be displayed to the user at a time they choose, or used for internal development and live game running purposes.
Or even better, you could use take the push notification, use log event, right? And so log it as like a system event for that particular player, and then you can do reporting on it later through our segmentation and analytics, and say like, this many users receive this push notification, etc.
Absolutely. All right, so just bouncing over to Unity, I'll give a breakdown of the project, and then we'll dive into some code and show how that it maps to those screens in the PowerPoint there. So basically we have one scene, the debugger scene, and it has a few major components. A login component that manages the login with device ID. It kind of runs at start, so there's not really anything to do other than make sure that your title ID is pointed to the right title. And then the screen output script, which manages all of the UI controlling, and then also some basic settings like the Google Project ID. So I think I closed the tab, but basically in your Google Development Console, you will be given a ID that's about 12 characters long. That is the ID that you're going to want to use on your client to tell the Google Project ID to how to validate and make sure that they have a valid push notification. On the Apple side, there is no equivalent to that. It's kind of done automatically through the certification that seals the app, and then you are good to go from their perspective at that point. So what's happening at the startup is your Unity application is talking with the native code, providing these credentials and certificates. That native code will cache that information, and then at the time that you want to register to get the actual token to connect your device to the push notification channel, that will go to the Apple or Google service, validate that you have the right certificate, that push is enabled, that push has been accepted by the end user, and then if all those checks pass, you will get a key token that is provided to PlayFab, and the whole process, assuming that completes, the whole process is now set up for the channel. At that point, your client is just awaiting push notifications. So hopping into the code here, I'll close out some of the more distracting ones, and we'll focus just on the screen output script here. So on startup, this is exactly what I just described here for the Unity Android. We're setting up the, I'll zoom in a little bit, that might make it easier. There we go. All right, so we are setting up the Unity project. Sorry, setting up the Google project ID, making our calls, and setting up our listener events. So I believe this is what you were talking about, Tim. Basically, you've got a on GCM ready. This lets you know when the plugin has been initialized, and on GCM registration, which tells you when you've got a valid token for the Android or the GCM, and then when a push notification comes in, that is the event that you would bind to listen for that. So after those are set up, we're initializing our plugin, and then our callbacks will handle the success and then kind of walk through the process as needed. For the Apple part, it's pretty simple. Although I would like to take a little detour here and talk a little bit about best practices for the Apple platform, considering it is an opt-in platform. So uh, a lot of games you'll see will pop the permissions dialog at the very beginning of your game, and depending on what all permissions they're asking for, there could be a couple different ones. And I think the numbers are like 60 something percent of users starting in like 2014 just opt out of everything, just no, 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 no across the board. So to get a better response rate and opt-in rate on your push notifications, it's very helpful to have what Scott, who wrote a really good blog article for us, calls the pre overlay. What is it? The pre prompt overlay. I forget his exact words, but basically it's an overlay that comes up right before the push notification permissions and kind of prompts you to how the push notifications are going to be used, the benefits that you'll get for opting in, and then oftentimes it's usually incentivized for some extra, in-game currency, some special item, avatar, etc. But basically, when you call the notification services register for notifications, if this is the first time that you've called this on a device, this will give you the pop-up. So before you call that, you'll definitely want to make sure that people already want to be notified, and then you pop that notification, and then they will see the connection, yes, yes, and the opt-in rate is a lot higher, and the people actually know what you're going to be using it for and want to participate in that channel. So it's really the best of both worlds. It's you know although you can kind of go behind the backs of people in the Android platform, it's just best to be upfront and let people know how you're going to be using these, and then use them effectively and use them properly to get the best results for you and your developers. So here we're asking for the sound, the custom badge, and the alerts. Those are the permissions in the notification system. And after the user has opted in, we basically are set up for push notifications on the Apple platform. And so let's take a look at the anything. Oh, before we take a look at the PlayFab code, any other questions on best practices for push, opting in on the Apple platform? Anything else?
So on the Apple platform, on iOS, they already prompt you to whether or not you want to accept the push notification, right? And then on Android, they don't at all prompt you. So so what you were saying, just because I wanted to be a little more clear on what you're saying, is like it doesn't matter which platform, we should be prompting and then giving a very solid understanding of what we're doing with the push notification. That way, when they, especially on Apple, because Apple did make it really easy for you to disable push notifications like anywhere in your phone, right? So you go into your settings and you can tell Netflix to stop telling me about new movies, right? So, but if they have a better understanding of like how you're using it, then then the opt-in rate for them to stay using those push notifications are higher. I would say like um, I mean, just this is just my opinion. I don't really have any factual, statistic behind it, but I would say like it's also important not to abuse push notifications because I mean, the more you send to your users, and this is just from my game development experience, the more you send to them, eventually they become, kind of numb to it, right? So they're like, I'm getting another notification from this app, and then they just turn it off anyway. So you know, you always want to use push notifications with moderation. They're super effective if they're already playing the game, and then you use that push notification to like reward the player for something, or use it kind of in an event system sort of way. And when they're offline, when they're not using your game, to use that like in moderation, right?
Yeah, we actually have a whole webinar that talked to this in a bit more detail about best practices for when to engage with people and making sure that you're not annoying them so much that they turn you off. We'll make sure that you guys get a link to that as part of the materials for this
Oh,
talk.
that'd be great.
Yeah, that was Scott that delivered that for us. So yeah, it's available online right now. We'll get you the info.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it certainly can be the whole parable of the boy who cried wolf. If there's too much alerting, people just tend to ignore it. But that being said, if they do opt out or manually disable and disengage from the push notification, that's not the end of the world. If you kind of get your act together, there are second chances in this world. For every app store update, it will reset that notification counter. So when you prompt for push notifications after that update, you will get the default OS permissions dialog again, and that will give them a chance to opt in or opt out. So you've got to be careful. If they were opted in, you're going to prompt them again, and so make sure that you make it clear that you're using push notifications in the same way if they were kind of happy with it, or if you had a bad opt-in rate. Make sure and tell people how you've changed it, or what's different, or what can be gained properly from opting in.
That's it.
And
I'm pushing updates to my apps on iOS every week now.
And you can also give instructions for how to. So because you can only call that API once and get that permissions overlay once, you can also provide them instructions for how to enable it on the settings app menu within the either iOS or Android. Both you can opt in from the general settings menus. That is another option, but those are basically your second chances. It's best to not have to use them unless you uh, have to. But that being said, great points, everyone. And we'll dive into some code here for running the PlayFab API. So, assuming you've got everything set up and configured, you will register for push notification. And in this project sample, this is where that code, when you press the button, will take you. And for the iPhone, you're going to want to call this notification services and say, get me a device token. And this is an interesting one because getting there is a small delay between asking. Oh, actually, let me back up for 1 minute. So going back up to the top, I will show that notification call one last time because there is one important note that happens on the Apple platform that's kind of bizarre. It took me a little bit to discover why it was actually happening. So first thing is, when you call the notification services register for notifications, this is an asynchronous call with no callback. It doesn't return immediately, and it can take probably a few hundred milliseconds to complete. So you need to call this ahead of time, or have some kind of delay between the time you call this and the time you call get token. So I like to call this at the beginning of the dialogue when you're talking about push notifications, and then there'll be some reading time, which is usually enough time for the notification to come back and validate and provide an active token. And then secondly, if you are building your app in Xcode, make sure you sign your build with the right token, or else this token will always come back null. Those are two kind of gotchas that are easy to run into, but kind of opaque and hard to figure out why they're happening. So with that being said, we get the token. If that token is not null, we're going to build our request object, which is the standard PlayFab building a request here. We have One small thing that we do on the token, which is basically convert it to a hex token from its current form or current binary array into a hex string. That hex string is passed into PlayFab, and then the API result is successful, assuming that the token's active and your title has been set up properly in the iOS channel. And just to note that this confirmation message and send push confirmation will get eaten by the app if you're running that immediate. If you're sending that immediately, the you will get the push notification to the app. It just will not be displayed. So you'll have to, for testing on iPhone at the moment, you'll need to test through Postman or another emulation of the send push notification API. Moving on to the Android platform, it's pretty simple. It's calling directly into the plugin that we talked about earlier. And let's see. I feel like I've missed a part, but
So do you have a method when, for that first call to see if it's completed? Like is initialized or something?
yeah. So for the Google platform,
Yeah, for that first call, the all important one.
um, are you talking about Google or Apple? Because the all important one is was talking about Apple.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there is no callback, and there is no ability to check that other than, well, there is no guaranteed way to check it because it looks, if you check it and it hasn't been registered, it looks exactly the same as somebody that's opted out. So it's kind of a pain.
And that's just a limitation of iOS, that it
Correct.
doesn't provide a way to check it.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for the Google side, we see the initialization happen. Well, wrong one. The initialization happen here, where we're giving it our Google Play project ID. After this initialization happens, we get the GCM ready callback, and that is located here on GCM ready callback. And then if we're getting a true status come back, then we know we're good to go and move forward. So then we get our Google messaging token. This token triggers the next callback, which is on GCM registration, where we get our token or our error back. So parsing the error and seeing if something's there, parsing the error variable, assuming nothing's there, we're good to go. And our token is received, and this token can now be used in our registration call down below. So scrolling down to that, here we're checking to make sure we have a valid token, setting the token up for our PlayFab request API, and then firing that off. And then, like I said before, assuming that your Google channel is configured properly, you'll get a success there. And for this example, this test notification will come through and then be displayed uh, within the app.
So we had a question which was, is the Google project ID the same as the sender ID?
The sender ID,
And I can speak to that
sure.
question a little bit, which is, yes, they are the exact same. It's now called the project ID, and it used to be called the sender ID. Back when, before they deprecated the register service, they so this was an Android question, and inside of your console, it still even says that it's the sender ID. So if you actually go into your Google Play console, it says sender ID, but then if you look inside of the API console for Google, it actually calls it a project ID. So they are one and the same thing.
Great. Yeah, and I have noticed there are multiple places to find that ID spread across the Google Play and the Google Developer Console. So you will see that name, that thing be called a couple different names, occur in a couple different places, and used in a couple different ways. So it is good to note that there is some ambiguosity around that. Excuse me. Moving on to testing the push notification system. So one good way to test push notification is so a little bit of background behind how we send push notifications. This is a server-based API call. So The server is the only one that has the authority to make this call, and you can get around this by having a cloud script out in attached to your title, and this cloud script can act as the server and access the server API call on your behalf. That message is or that is configured here in this title. I don't think we're gonna have time to get into the details of the push notification, but that will be explained here fully in the sample for download. And like I said, we're going to be making that available very shortly. So you can test from within your app, sending push notifications through the cloud script, through a dedicated API server, or through a server emulator like Postman, curl, or an additional, your favorite tool for emulating REST calls. Um, so I think that basically covers most of the major pieces of getting a client registered, testing to see if things are working, and then I'm just going to briefly show how the structure is altered to do a custom push notification. So this would be sending a push notification with custom data, custom icon, and or custom sound. And just bear with me a moment while I pull up the JSON.
Okay, quick question.
Sure.
I've seen Android stuff, I've seen iOS stuff. Is there notifications for Windows and Mac?
There are notifications for Windows phones, but however, we have not set up the channel to integrate with Windows Phone devices at this time on the PlayFab platform. But that is possible, and if you're running a Unity project that is deploying to those platforms, there are plugins available that you can use, third-party plugins and instructions on how to write your own for managing the same system. So Brendan, do you have any insight on is it possible to somehow shim a Windows push notification into the system, or is it currently not possible?
I would need to. I would need to review the Windows SDK documentation specifically, but my recollection right now is that they do have a web API that they provide for this. So, presuming that you can use their web API to make the push call, you could do that through CloudScript because we provide the HTTP functionality in CloudScript to let you call out to any other web API endpoint.
Cool. So, and that would enable additional platforms as well if they had a similar system, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you can call out to any endpoint you need to. We have people who are using that for basically they do direct communications between the client and our service, the client and their back end, but they also do communications between our back end and their back end for secure server to server actions.
So, do you guys have a RESTful API that uses JSON?
The question was, do we have a RESTful API that uses JSON for that?
Do we have a RESTful API that uses JSON for the HTTP calls in CloudScript?
Yeah, it would be. Well, I mean, you have some sort of API. It doesn't have to be REST related, but
So sorry, I missed your answer. I actually don't have a headset.
okay.
So you were saying?
So the original question was, so we've seen some Android code, we've seen some iOS code.
Right.
I was talking about maybe not Windows Phone platform, although that I was just thinking Windows itself because there's a bunch of, if not Unity editor, if you wanted to test your stuff in the editor,
Ye-
is there an API, a web API endpoint for just any platform?
Yeah. So that is dependent on what platforms have push capabilities. So that is really only a mobile device type feature. So there's not really a way to emulate that in. There's not a way to emulate true push notification in the browser. Conceivably, you can make a messaging system that sends messages to players and acts like a push system, but that's not using the push protocol, the push uh, native hooks into these mobile devices.
Right. It would have to be a custom notification thing that people install. I got you.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, and moving on to actually sending the data, just briefly here, the structure looks a little bit like this. This is the JSON structure, and we're going to stringify this to send it along our API. But basically, we've got the title, which is the title of the message. The app icon, this is the default app icon. The sound, which can be omitted if you'd like the default sound. But here I'm using a different sound, which is stored in my raw folder. So I guess I will point that out. So we are using the older, more backwards compatible Android resources structure, where you've got drawable assets, which are this open chest is our custom icon, and then our raw file types, which is our WAV file, our open sound that's going to get played on custom push notifications. That information is kind of enumerated here. And we have our push message, which is the message that gets surfaced if we're going to surface that to the notification area. And then our custom data that's also coming through that we're going to use inside the client to award 5 gold or do whatever we need to do with that. So I'm using this online tool just to give a quick string here, stringify that JSON, and then I'm going to hop over to the Postman and then pull up our send push notification from the server. Oh. And then this string would be copy and pasted into here. And from here, we are good to send. So you can send this information, and it looks like it came through. It's on the mobile device. I wish I could show that live with sounds and all, but um, I mean, I showed a picture. It's yeah. We'll get live streaming from mobile devices up maybe in one of the future calls, but that's kind of end to end custom push notifications, dealing with push notifications in game, doing custom actions and logic based on custom data that's coming across. Any other questions before we close out? We're pretty much over time, but we started a little late, so we can stay around and answer questions or have any last minute discussions.
So Marco, you got that Elgato.
Uh,
Right off that.
yeah, Marco's stream crashed. He's not on the speaker anymore. But yeah, we just didn't. We had some technical difficulties right before we got started, and we didn't have enough time to set it all up. So, but yeah, he's definitely. He was telling me all about it this morning. Pogacha.
What did he ask?
You can use Pogacha to get the mobile streaming up and running.
I'm not that fancy. I just use Elgato. It's a little HDMI capture device.
Oh,
El Gaucho.
oh, Elgato.
El
Yeah,
Gato.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
the hardware device, right?
Yeah, to be able to show
Yeah,
it,
I've seen those.
to be able to show it on your
Yeah,
screen. Yeah, I have one of those too.
yeah, he has one. He's. It's all coming back to him now.
Yeah, I also have a jar file that'll allow you to just like stream from the thing. It's just there's a huge lag, but you can still see it.
Cool. Did you hear that, Tim?
Yeah, they have a newer device, the one with 60 in it, and instead of 3 seconds of lag, it's 2 seconds. So check that
No,
out.
this is like a 10-second lag on this jar file. Elgato's way faster, even though Elgato still has lag, but Elgato's still faster.
It's because it's compressing all that visual data on that little box. It needs an i9 with a dedicated decoder and encoder.
Oh, geez. That's, anything else? Oh, that's all right. Well, thanks for tuning in with us, and thanks for joining the hangout. That was a great conversation, and I believe we'll have this up on our YouTube channel in the probably within the week. And yeah, thanks again from myself and Marco and Tom and Brendan. We'll be signing off until next time.